right. So if I were to ask you to think of wineries, think of wine country, where would you find a great winery or vineyard? Well, what's the first answer you think of? California? Texas maybe? Oregon? How about Kansas? Yeah, Kansas. Turns out that there are some fantastic wineries in Kansas that produce superb wines. Now, what does that have to do with RVing and with RVers? Well, it turns out a lot. So hang with me, folks, hang with me. To tell us about one of the coolest vineyards and wineries in all of Kansas, it's just off of I-70 there, is one of the owners of Shiloh Vineyard. His name is Kirk Johnston. Kirk, welcome to the show. Are you there, Kirk?
Yes, I am here.
Well, good. I know that was kind of a long wind-up to get up to Kansas, but I appreciate you being with us. I had no idea, man, that there was such great wine being made in the state of Kansas.
Yeah, there sure is. We've planted our vineyard 10 years ago, and we've been commercial now for 5 years. We have a unique location. It's my grandfather bought this place in 1921. Our tasting room is a chicken house that my grandfather built in 1925, and we have a 100-year-old barn as our event center.
A chicken house?
Yes, a chicken house. And it's not a small chicken house. They had 300 layers when they built it, and they sold eggs and day-old chicks. But we've been doing the wine now commercially for 5 years. It's been a very exciting project to get into. I've been a farmer for a long time, and it's exciting to be able to take our product, grow it, manufacture it, and then sell the final product as wine.
Now I want to talk a little bit, not a little bit, a lot about Shiloh, and I want to hear about how you guys grow the grapes and make the wines and all that. But first off, kind of connect the dots, if you will, why RVers really need to know, who are, especially are traveling between, I guess, Kansas City and Denver, need to know about Shiloh Vineyard.
This is a unique location. We are off the beaten path a little bit, but that means that there's it's very nice and quiet here. We have very little traffic on our road. We have room for quite a few people to come and stay with us. We just enjoy having people from all over the world come and visit us. And we've taken great lengths to make this an enjoyable stay for whoever comes here.
And the people that are members of Harvest Hosts, which we talk about every week, they can stay overnight with y'all for free there at Shiloh.
Yes, exactly.
So, folks, that's how we connect the dots, because if you're a member of Harvest Hosts, you can stay for free. So now let's talk a little bit about wine. What in the world was going through your mind, Kirk Johnston, how'd you come up with, we're going to grow grapes here in Kansas? Tell us about that.
Well, it kind of goes back before Prohibition, because Kansas and Missouri produced 86% of the wine in the United States prior to Prohibition. Kansas was the number 2 state for grape production at that time. Prohibition came in, devastated the wine industry, and we're just rediscovering our roots, what we can do here. We are in a grape growing region. We're not going to grow some of the grapes that you might be familiar with, like a Cabernet Sauvignon or a Merlot or a Chablis. We have a continental climate here, but our soils are similar to the Champagne region in France. They haven't had an inland sea. We had an inland sea here. We have plenty of degree days to get our crop to maturity, but we have to grow a little cold, hardy varieties here. So we're going to have things like Norton, Chamberson, Petit Pearl, Vidal Blanc, Brianna, and then we also have fruit wines that we grow here. We have peach, plum, pear, and apple.
What does it take, Kirk, to create a good tasting wine? I mean, I don't know very much about wines. We've been to Napa Valley, and I've done the wine tasting stuff. But what does it take to create a good wine?
Well, you have to have good quality fruit and ripe fruit. So if you don't have that, I don't care how good a winemaker you are, you're not going to make a good wine. That's where it starts. So it starts in the vineyard, and then deciding when you're going to harvest. It's like if you've ever had a garden, you want to pick your fruit at the peakness of ripeness, and then get it processed and get it underway, so it can go through the fermentation process, and you end up with an awesome wine. Oh, and plus lots of patience, because wine is not a quick thing to make. It's going to take some time to get it to the final product.
What about critters that like to eat the grapes? Do you have to fight, I don't know, ants or birds or anything? I know I'm going to ask some really stupid questions here, but what about protecting the fruit as it's growing, as they say, on the vine?
We do have to put nets on our vines to keep the birds out of there. And we haven't had to do it this year or the year before, but the raccoons also like to come in and eat grapes. And we put electric fence around the vineyard to keep them out then.
Yeah, those raccoons are so smart, they're going to learn how to turn the power off. I know raccoons get...
Yes, exactly.
They're pretty cagey. All right, Kirk, hang on, folks. Yeah. We're talking about another place where Harvest Host Club members can stay for free, not in an old crowded campground either, but at a super nice little family-owned winery and vineyard run by Kirk and Treva Johnston. We're going to pick it back up and tell you more details about Shiloh Vineyard and how to stay there, and more than 600 other great destinations for nada. Right after this. This is the RV Show USA.
The RV Show USA. Start living the RV dream today.
And streaming live from our studios in the Alamo City overlooking the San Antonio International Airport. This is the RV Show USA. On our guest line is Kirk Johnston from Shiloh Vineyard in Kansas. About, I guess, halfway maybe between Kansas City and Denver. Kirk, so we have... touched on wines. Tell us about this time of year. I guess this is your harvest time and the busiest, craziest time of year for y'all at Shiloh?
Yeah, it sure is. In fact, we're getting a group together to harvest one of our varieties this weekend. And when anybody comes out here for a wine tasting, we give them this. We ask them if they would like to come and pick grapes for a couple of hours, have lunch on us, and a free bottle of wine, and we'll get 20 to 40 people come out and help harvest. And then I get a process after that's done, and that goes on for, we started in mid-August with our first variety, and then different varieties will mature at different times. So we've got 2 more varieties to pick, and we should be done with our harvest hopefully in about 2 weeks.
So how do you pick them?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you pick the grapes? I mean, or do you have a machine that does it, or just old-fashioned manual labor?
Manual labor, and we have a high-tech tool to take them off the vines. Grab them with one hand, and then we've taken a hacksaw blade, break it in half, and put duct tape around one end, and it takes breaks the stem right off. And the nice thing about it is if you hit your finger with the hacksaw blade, you won't cut your finger then.
I gotcha. That sounds pretty high tech to me. How many pounds of grapes does it take to make one bottle of wine? I mean, I think about what a grape looks like. It takes a lot of grapes to make one bottle of wine, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's going to take depending on a lot of factors, 3 to 5 pounds of grapes to make one bottle of wine. And and we deal in tons, so 1 ton, 2,000 pounds of grapes will make around 150, 160 gallons of wine.
And how big is your vineyard there at Shiloh? I mean, is it an acre, half an acre? Is it?
We have 6 acres.
Wow. That sounds like a whole lot of grapes to pick. You better have a lot of volunteers. But I would think that would be fun work for somebody to do, especially an RVer that's traveling and going, you know what, let's go over there and help Shiloh pick some grapes, and we can say we were part of this deal. Yeah,
it is. It like I said, we'll pick a couple hours in the morning when it's cool and then have lunch, and people just enjoy doing that. And then you can sit around and have a glass of wine during lunch and afterwards, and just enjoy the venue.
If you were to compare grapes that you'd buy at a grocery store. Okay, you just go to the grocery store and buy a grape versus a grape that you'd pick off of one of your vines there at Shiloh. Can you taste a big difference? What's the difference in that?
They are going to be smaller, most of them, and they're going to be a lot sweeter. When our white grapes are going to be around 20% sugar when we harvest them, and our red grapes are going to be closer to 24-25% sugar. The table grapes you get in town are going to be around 15% sugar.
Really?
And then all of our grapes are going to have seeds too.
A lot of spitting going on if you're eating the grapes then.
Yeah. But they're delicious, and they have lots of flavors in them.
Did any of your family or friends, when you and Treva said, you know what, we're going to go back, we're going to start growing, we're going to make a vineyard, did any of your family or friends say, you're going to do what?
Yes, that we've heard that quite a bit, because it's not the normal thing to do in this area. The area we're at is mainly grain and livestock farms, but there are being more and more vineyards and wineries in the state of Kansas. At this time, we're the farthest winery in West Kansas.
I'll be dang. So let's go back to the RVers. If I'm a member of Harvest Hosts and I'm traveling on I-70 and I want to come and stay there with you and Treva at Shiloh Vineyard, what do I have to do and what am I going to experience? Tell me about that. Okay.
Need to call us up and just make sure that we have room for you. And we are off the beaten path, so you want to check and see how the weather is also. But then once you make arrangements, we'll be in contact with you. Make sure you get here. Once you get here, we have a place for you to set up, and then we'll take you on a tour of our facility, of the barn, of the winery. We'll go back to the tasting room, and you can taste all of our wines. And then with that, you'll get a cheese platter from a family-owned dairy that is in Kansas, Weeby Dairy. They're one of the last family-owned dairies in the state of Kansas. And we sell their cheese also, Ritz crackers, and our well water. You get to taste that also. And then you get to listen to me and Treva for about an hour talking about our wines.
And folks, what you're hearing Kirk say, this is free if you're a member of Harvest Hosts, except as I call it, the law of reciprocity. What you're hoping, and Treva, you guys work very hard there. You've got a beautiful place. You're hoping that the RVers fall in love with it. They tell their friends about it. They leave with maybe a case of wine, and they have a good time while they're there. So it's a win-win.
Absolutely. And, we've been doing this for 4 years with Harvest Host. We have met so many cool people from all over. It just amazes me how many nice people we've met through the last few years with Harvest Host.
Yeah, and the RVers, most of them are really, really, as you know, good people. So anyway, so I got a question for you. Give me in about a minute, Kirk, what's the typical day for you and your wife like there? I mean, is there a typical day? What's it like, and how long are your work hours?
Well, me and my wife are on different ends of the spectrum. I'm a morning person, and she is not. So I'm up fairly early in the morning. I try to get all of our paperwork done. I get up at 5 or 6 in that range. And then I'll go out and feed our animals. We have dog, cats, chickens, sheep, and they need to be looked at. And then I'll check the winery out, make sure everything's going on right there. Then we have to decide. We keep our grounds pretty well manicured, so there's usually something to do there. The vineyard needs looked at, and we also farm at the time. So a typical day is we don't know until we go out and see what needs to be done.
It's not 8 to 5, that's for sure, is it?
No. And we're usually open by at least 1 o'clock, but we live here, so when we have appointments, we'll go on either side of 1 to 6. You do need to check because we do events here also to see how that's going. We do weddings and anniversaries, bridal showers, family gatherings.
Well, you've got to. I've got to wrap it up there and leave it, but go into a break. But thank you for spending some time with us. The pictures on your website, they look absolutely beautiful. We wish you the very best, and we'll talk again. Okay.
Okay. Very good.
All right. You take care, folks. That was Kirk Johnston with Shiloh Vineyard. If you're a member of Harvest Hosts, you can stay there for free. It's $49 a year to be a member of this thing. And if you mention the RV Show USA or have the code word radio, you'll save another 10%. Go to harvesthosts.com, code word radio at checkout.
The RV Show USA. Start living.